closing discussion today was talking about the evolution of the concept of the digital workplace. So we heard about Jane, who is seeing there's an overall concept of all digital work supporting environments somehow that is evolving within the company. Not essentially one tool, it's an environment of different tools, of different settings that work together. As far as I understood. Then we have Michel also in his study that we have different vendors. There are more vendors now entering the market, but as far as I understood your study, there are more vendors in the social space, more or less. And we recognize also the trends of the market. They are going towards it's more easy, more enabling, also more fun by providing gamification tools, so really getting the people engaged. So are these the trends? Also, I invited 3 vendor representatives to the stage. So we got Niclas Otte from the SAP, Robert Shaw from blueKiwi, as well as Simon Levene from Jive. So would you agree with these trends, and how do you support these trends also with your technology, or are there other future trends that you are following? And maybe you are disagreeing with what has been said so far. Niclas, because you haven't said anything so far today. Oh yeah, indeed.
That's my chance, right?
So you're starting.
Yeah, hello everyone. Well, certainly I loved the presentations. Thank you for all the insights and a lot of profound intelligence in your research. There's, I think, many different topics, and somehow a lot of them relate to social business, internal engagement, empowerment, the external piece in your presentation. I can only reiterate a lot of the things that have been said so far. One thing I want to do is, maybe just pick one trend that we observe as a key driver around social business, and I think many of you will relate to it with your own activities. Well, we certainly observe that trust as a concept is playing a bigger role, and we can apply trust to internal dynamics as well as external dynamics. So let's just take internal at first, right? So we've heard, engagement is certainly the concept where we are trying to foster knowledge sharing, having engaged employees. And we see that, due to the digital revolution, which is then, of course, also impacting our workplace, which is why I think in a few years' time we will no longer talk about the digital workplace, but about workplace in general, because it's going to be the foundation that we all have to live with. But let's say trust, openness is some of the dynamics that we're observing. So a lot of the C-levels, executives, they also have, of course, they need to build that trust internally as well as externally, right? So when we talk about trust, many times we talk about customer relations being equally important. No, it's actually the same thing with the internal workforce, right? We need to build that trust, and we need to have everybody pitching in, working together. And this is why we're certainly observing that the digital revolution is having a key impact. And we can then tie it to some of the competitiveness as a topic, right? If we today want to be competitive as a company, we need to enable a modern digital workplace, because we see all the trends. If we take a look at some of the research out there, the Fortune 500 from 1955, 87% are no longer there today, right? And we've heard some very traditional companies today which are there, and the reason for it is that you are driving social business, I guess. Right, so it is really the case that in order to drive your competitiveness as a company, digital workplace strategies will play a huge role. And then we as a vendor, as SAP, we have, of course, many of you associate us with the enterprise application world. And as you've heard today, some of the research basically it reiterates or underlines the fact that this is one of the areas where there's a lot of room for improvement. And this is our vision and our mission to some degree, that we are tying social to the process-centric world, right? So with SAP, we're not brand new, of course, we're now getting more and more serious. It's highly strategic for us, which is why it's fantastic to be here. But we don't start from scratch. So we have incredible foundation, among our thousands of customers to take a look at what's working and where are some rooms for improvement. And we're absolutely confident that by actually bridging some of the disparate collaboration and transactional words, right? Currently it's disparate. Now if you actually now connect the two pieces together, you improve a lot of the inefficiencies which are currently there. And this is what we're doing, and we're taking it very deep into the enterprise by use case. So by line of business, as well as for cross-enterprise use cases, internal as well as external. So a lot of the pieces are part of that.
We can't take more. So is that essentially you're saying that if we go to the digital workplace, it must be process related?
It's certainly automatically part of it, because in order to support different roles in the enterprise, there is also processes that we're touching.
Okay. Robert, what's your take?
I would say that there are three themes: interoperability, security, and mobile. Interoperability, because when you look at those multiple solutions, many of them overlap, and many existing major solutions that corporations have will include a social component. So how does the social software that companies choose fit within their existing infrastructure? And what do they choose to switch on, and what do they choose to switch off? Security is vital, because organizations are organic. You have joiners and leavers. Increasingly, social communities consist of a mix of external and internal actors, whether they're employees or partners or customers. So security will be very, very important to ensure that you know who you're collaborating with and what you say with those people that you're collaborating with. And of course, mobile is the last major trend. We can see the revolution in apps and the way that mobiles now dominate our lives. If we were meeting here just 3 years ago, we'd be talking about BlackBerries and emails on the phone. We can now do almost anything on our phones, on our pads. The desktop environment will transform, and so much our social software. So I see those three features actually linking together, so that vendors and as consumers of our products, you would look for those features increasingly going forward.
Simon.
It's one of those fates of life that I get to go third out the vendors. So it means that if you're talking about trends, I have to listen to everyone else and say, okay, which of my trends haven't they come up with yet? So we've talked about the tools becoming platforms. We've talked about mobility. We've talked about lots of different things. I suppose I'll pick out two trends that I haven't heard expressed yet, and they're probably in your surveys, and they're probably well-founded. We've talked about analytics and big data. One of the things I haven't heard about is sentiment analysis. Now, what I mean by sentiment analysis is we can spend fortunes, weeks, crafting a message that comes from the CEO down to his workforce. And we want that to be social, and we want it to be good quality, and we send it out. And then it's a black hole. And what happens? So one of the trends I'm seeing, and it's real now, you can do it now, is sentiment analysis. What happens when people receive that message? Can you actually track what happens? Who is positive about it? What interactions are they having with that piece of information, that data they've got? Do they like it? Do they share it? Do they comment on it? Do they ignore it? Do they offer negative connotations to it? So understanding the sentiment that people have when they receive something, I think it's going to be a trend, and it's a trend that's available now. It's real, it's possible. The other trend I'm going to pick out is that one of the things I've seen in the slides, especially your slides, is that people are going to get on and try this. We've had years of different initiatives where we go into analysis paralysis. What I'm seeing from the conversations today is people are willing to try. People are actually willing to fail as well. And I'm British, in case you can't tell by the accent. In England, we have a concept of ready, aim, 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 aim. And maybe eventually we fire. The guys, Brits, and are smiling back there. Thank you very much. In America, they have a concept of ready, fire. It's like they have a go. Thank you very much, my American colleagues.
Fire ready.
I've always wanted to be Australian. I think I should have been born in Australia, because in Australia, they just go fire. And they've got a great culture that says, if you fail, at least you tried. And I think we can sit, we can analyze, but the key thing here is to, and I've heard it from a couple of people today, listen, learn, and iterate. You don't know what the answer is. You don't know how people are going to react to all of this. You can do the best you can. Then you get it out there, you listen, you learn, and then you iterate and you improve. And I think if there's a message I want to leave, since I'm the last person probably talking in a very hot room with people getting sleepy at the end of the day, is try and then iterate and develop, because you'll never get it right the first time.
I think 4 years ago at Enterprise 2.0 Summit, somebody coined the term of Nutzungsoffenheit. So the openness of to develop any use case with a platform in the future. So do we need some more of this for the platforms? Because, well, this way we can really jump into try one use case and then develop from there to another use case. So is this the future, what we also need for the technology? More flexibility and adaptability?
I think you've got lots of flexibility. I think the limitations are on people's minds. They often go through use cases and think, this is how I did things in the past, and this is how I always do it. I think you need some envisioning there of how you could do things differently in the future. You may not get it right first time, but you can learn from experience. So I think phasing out a series of use cases, one of the things we were talking about earlier when I was on the panel earlier, is come up with initial use cases that you can show a return, a response very quickly. Don't pick something that's going to show benefits in 5 or 10 years' time. Pick your initial things around stuff that's going to show a response, a benefit in 3 to 6 months. And then have a roadmap of your use cases, if you want to think of it in that way, that you implement new use cases over time so you can actually get started, get people experienced, and get value out of it early.
Jane, would you relate to this? Also to the idea of having open, flexible platforms in regards to what we have to do for the transformation to really advance and to really build everything with it?
Yes, I mean, I even personally hate the word use case,
I agree.
because that's already a box for me. I use the word, I used it in my report. And I'm not a technology expert, but I think people just need to be able to do things with the technology. And I realize we need to identify use cases and has to be repeatable and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think things need to be more flexible. You saw on my chart for the cultures that the early adopters have cultures where it's okay to make mistakes and they're encouraged to experiment. And I think that's fundamental to groups of people advancing towards whatever their shared goals are.
Michel, are the platforms today already open and flexible enough?
No.
Can be improved, I think, of course. For instance, I mentioned the problem of digital identity. I said that there is no standard for that. So, for instance, if you put all your employee profile in a given social network tool, you will not be able to take it and move it to another one. So there is no standard, there is no interoperability about this, which is totally crucial. So that's an example. That's an example of improvement that can be done, and that's probably crucial for companies. The problem as well is that companies are adding tools, so it's like layers. We have layers like in like in geology, by the so we can dig and see and find the tool that we had 15 years ago. It's still here. So we are not replacing one tool by another one. We are adding layers, and I think users and company are fed up with that, and they need to have a digital workplace, not 10 layers of technology.
Oops. Is blueKiwi today more easier or more complex?
Well, you could argue both. It's more feature-rich, but it's easier to use. And it becomes easier to use because people have a greater familiarity. So there are more people to help. Clearly, Facebook, Twitter is much more common in the real world. So when you bring those behaviors into the workplace, they're not strange anymore. Every year that goes by, that's another year of Generation Y that comes into the workplace, and baby boomers and Generation X that leave the workplace. But I think that there is a plateauing of features amongst the major social software companies. And I think it will become much more a matter of choice and a matter of how easily those tools fit within the existing legacy infrastructure that will prevail. So it's not a clear answer to your question. There's always a drive to develop more features, but ultimately there will only be a few of those features that will be used on a regular basis. There'll be a strong Pareto effect. The trick for the vendors will be to work out what those features are and make them the best they can be.
Niclas, so we need a deep integration into the legacy world, also with social. You mentioned this, so in the process world. But this is not easy to set up, so this is not easy, flexible to set up, and with Nutzungsoffenheit, so we can change it tomorrow for another use case, is it?
Well, of course, there's a level of complexity, and we all need to be honest. In large enterprise, things are complex, and there's constant reorganizations happening, acquisitions, new management coming in. But there is ways to simplify things and to tie social to everyone's role, right? This is what we are starving for. I'm still convinced that this is, at the end of the day, what can drive this forward to the next level. And so it's certainly, not using the word use cases anymore, but we all find these activities. We can think of corporate activities. At the end of the day, we don't need to invent fancy words because we have a certain role, we have certain activities, and currently, sometimes we just take the step and leave our activity or do it somewhere else, maybe in a communication environment or collaboration environment. And there is ways to bridge this, to take it where people are working currently and apply digital workplace elements to it. This could mean that you're doing that on a mobile device, in your social network, in your enterprise application. So it's not necessarily about, finding ways to think of, because processes are always like, we are afraid as humans. It doesn't necessarily go well, right? I mean, there's a reason for it, that the transactional world and the collaboration and communication worlds are currently disparate, because sometimes we are afraid of that creativity element. When we talk about processes, humans tend to have a natural limitation also with that. And that's why, there is huge value. We can think of roles in sales, operations, HR, where it's very easy to actually do that without further complicating the world, but maybe making it even easier, right? Not leaving the environments, working in disparate worlds, but actually tying the thing together.
Thank you.